The executive floor of Linford Dynamics boasted sweeping views of downtown Chicago, floor-to-ceiling glass, curated modern art. And today, my Uncle Darren's self-satisfied smirk as I silently emptied his trash can. "Camille's just sprucing up before the investor meeting," he said to his son, Trevor, who didn't even glance up from his iPad. "Can't have the place looking like a frat house when Westlake Holdings shows up." I said nothing, collecting coffee-stained mugs and straightening the business magazines on his desk. If only they knew. Westlake Holdings? That's mine. To my family, I'm Camille Vance, the late-night janitor who drifts through offices with a mop and a trash bag. But that's only the surface. 14 years ago, when I was 20 and grieving my father's sudden death, Uncle Darren made his move. He claimed my mother wasn't equipped to handle the company, and that I was too young, too green. He offered to help. Within a year, he'd orchestrated a silent coup, manipulated the board, diluted our shares, and forced us out with a pitiful buyout. My mother signed the papers in tears while Darren patted her hand like a benevolent executioner. "This is for the best," he said. "Tech isn't really a place for women anyway." I never forgot that. While they celebrated boardroom victories, I studied by day and cleaned offices by night. I earned my degrees in software engineering and business administration with no fanfare, no applause, just relentless focus. I watched, I listened, I waited. By 29, I'd earned an MBA and founded Westlake Holdings, named after the suburb where my father built his first prototype in our basement. I built the company from the ground up, acquiring tech firms, piecing together influence, and quietly buying up shares of Linford Dynamics through shell entities and proxy investors. Darren never saw it. In his mind, I was still just Camille, an invisible disappointment in worn-out shoes and a utility cart. But now, the company's unraveling. Failed products, shrinking clients, gutted engineering teams. They need a savior, and they've come knocking on my door, not knowing I built it. For 6 months, I returned under the cover of my old job, pushing the mop cart through corridors I used to run through as a child. They called me custodial staff. But behind that title, I uncovered everything: cooked books, ghost revenue, buried liabilities, and offshore shell games disguised as strategic partnerships. I cataloged it all while they posted vacation selfies and laid off loyal staff. Now, this morning, I'm making one last pass through the floor before the meeting. "Camille," Darren barked as I headed for the stairwell, "make sure that conference table shines. We've got big investors coming in." "Yes, Uncle," I replied, voice level. He didn't even look up. "And stay out of sight, will you?" "No need for confusion." I gave a small nod and slipped out. Downstairs, past the boiler room, my locker waited. Inside hung a tailored Saint Laurent blazer, a pair of sharp Louis Vuitton pumps, and a leather folio packed with documents that would change the company's fate. My phone buzzed. "Car is ready, Miss Vance. Waiting outside. Asha. Boardroom is prepped. Westlake team assembled. Your mother just landed, she's bringing the revised terms." I smiled. For years, my mother played the grieving widow, quiet, overlooked, but she was the architect behind every major Westlake acquisition. Her vulnerability? A calculated illusion. We had waited a long time for this day. I caught my reflection in the break room microwave, cleaning uniform, hair pulled back, hands still smudged from office grime. But in under 2 hours, I'd walk back through those polished doors, not as Camille the janitor, but as Camille Vance, majority shareholder of Westlake Holdings and the woman about to reclaim her father's stolen legacy. The company Darren said a woman could never lead. I adjusted a crooked photo on the wall, a younger Uncle Darren, grinning at a shareholder gala. All ego, all facade. "We'll see about that," I murmured. 1 hour later, I stood in the lobby restroom of Linford Dynamics, ready to reintroduce myself. My transformation was complete. The worn-out polo and khakis were zipped neatly into my designer bag. In their place, tailored wool, stilettos that could slice egos, and the unshakable confidence of a woman who built an empire in the shadows. One final sweep of scarlet lipstick, a quick adjustment to the pendant at my collar, Dad's initials, etched in silver, and I stepped into the hallway. Let the show begin. If you've ever been underestimated, ignored, or quietly planning your moment, don't look away. Camille's just getting started. Subscribe now. You'll want a front row seat when the janitor takes the head of the table. Gone was the nervous, invisible girl. In the mirror now stood the CEO of Westlake Holdings, worth more than the entire Linford Dynamics building. My phone buzzed. He brushed past me without a glance. Ready when you are, sweetheart. Mom. I smiled. For years, my mother had played her part flawlessly, the grieving widow. Too fragile for boardrooms. The family never questioned the Cartier bracelets, the spontaneous trips to Provence, smart investments, they said. They weren't wrong. I was the investment. Through the frosted glass of the boardroom, I saw them all, Uncle Darren at the head of the table, chest puffed, spinning fairy tales to anxious board members. Trevor beside him, eyes glued to his phone, probably toggling between crypto prices and dating apps. The same people who smiled as they forced us out were now hunched forward, waiting to be saved. I checked my watch. Time. The receptionist, who had watched me mop floors hours earlier, blinked in confusion as I approached in heels and a black suit that meant business. I'm here for the Westlake meeting, I said. Oh, yes, the CEO should be here shortly. I handed her my card. She read it, then looked up at me. Camille Vance, CEO. Her jaw softened into something like awe. Inside the boardroom, Darren was mid-performance. Westlake would be lucky to partner with Linford Dynamics. We're positioned for major. He stopped. His eyes locked on me. Annoyance, confusion, and then recognition. I'm sorry, this is a private, Camille? Did you forget to put up the do not disturb sign? Actually, I said, my voice calm and clear, I'm exactly where I belong. I walked in slowly, each heel click deliberate, placing a card at the center of the table. I said, Camille Vance, CEO, Westlake Holdings, shall we begin? The room froze. Darren's face drained. Trevor's phone slipped from his fingers and hit the table with a dull thud. The board glanced between me and Darren, unsure who they should be listening to now. This is a joke, Darren said, choking on his words. You clean this building. No, Uncle, I replied evenly, setting my leather folio on the table. I own the company that does. I opened the binder. Neatly tabbed documents slid across the polished surface, falsified revenue, hidden debt, predatory layoffs. Let's talk about your books, and what it's going to cost to keep this company afloat. Around the table, interest sharpened, faces leaned closer. Oh, and this, I added, handing over the final file, is documentation showing how you illegally pushed my mother and me out of my father's company? You can't prove. I can, I said, nodding to the door. It opened. My mother entered in navy silk, posture regal, eyes ice cold. Hello, Mother, I said, right on time. She laid down a thick binder in front of Darren. You really should have tracked who was buying those worthless shares, she said coolly. Westlake Holdings has held majority ownership for a while now. Trevor stood up, his chair screeching. She's a nobody, just a janitor. I turned to him, unbothered. Correction, I own the janitorial firm that services this building, just like I own the venture firm you've been chasing for capital, and as of this morning. I tapped my phone. The screen behind me lit up. Westlake's logo, portfolio, holdings. Majority ownership, Linford Dynamics. As of today, I also own controlling interest in your father's company. I looked directly at Darren. You spent years laughing at the idea of women running tech. Then I smiled. While I built an empire you never saw coming. Every time I emptied your trash, I was gathering intelligence. Every time you dismissed me, I was performing due diligence. I stood, savoring the sight of his posture collapsing inward. And now I own the company my father built. The legacy you tried to steal, every inch of it. You can't do this, Darren rasped. We're family. My mother laughed, cold, unapologetic. Family? Was it family when you took advantage of me weeks after my husband's funeral? When you signed documents behind closed doors while I was still grieving? I pressed a button on my phone. The double doors opened. 2 suited security personnel stepped inside. These gentlemen will help you gather your things, I said smoothly. Your keycards have already been deactivated. Trevor's voice cracked. You're firing us? No, I replied, collecting my papers with care. I'm reclaiming what's mine. A beat. I tapped my chin, mock thoughtful. Although we do have openings in janitorial services, I hear it's a humbling way to learn the business. Darren surged to his feet, fists clenched, face dark. You arrogant little. Careful, uncle, I said, nodding toward security. They work for me now, and unlike you, they're professionals. He froze. The silence that followed was heavy with realization. What he stole had been retaken, quietly, completely, and with elegance. The boardroom now belonged to me. As Darren and Trevor were escorted out, I turned to the silent, stunned board. Well, I said, adjusting my blazer cuff. Now that the disruption's over, shall we talk about the future of Linford Dynamics? No one objected. I've prepared a full modernization plan, I continued, voice steady. System overhauls, greenlit RD initiatives, and above all, ethical leadership, from the top down. What followed was one of the most gratifying hours of my life. I laid out the roadmap, a new cybersecurity framework, restructuring toxic teams, a partnership initiative to rebuild employee trust. I spoke not just as a CEO, but as someone who had walked those halls in silence, who knew where the cracks were because I'd swept past them night after night. By the end, even the skeptics were nodding. That evening, I sat alone in the corner office. My father's office. His nameplate, slightly worn, freshly polished, rested on the desk. The skyline of downtown Chicago blinked in the window. My mother entered, holding 2 champagne flutes. Your father would be so proud, she said, handing one to me. I took it, watching the bubbles rise. Do you think 10 years of cleaning offices was too petty? I asked. She laughed, a real, warm laugh. Darling, you built a billion-dollar empire while letting them think you were invisible. That's not petty, that's genius. My phone buzzed. Darren, you've destroyed this family. Trevor, you can't do this to us. Cousins, we didn't know, we're so sorry. I blocked them all with one tap. What now? My mother asked. I stood, walked to the window. I found Dad's nameplate in a basement storage closet, I said, lifting it gently. Now, we rebuild, the right way. Just then, the desk phone lit up. Security. We caught Darren in the server room, the guard reported, trying to wipe archive files. I didn't flinch. I backed up the servers months ago, I replied. Let him go. Should we press charges? I considered it. No, he's already lost everything, his job, his pride, his illusion of control. And tomorrow, when the press release goes live, I glanced at the glass, where my reflection hovered over the glittering skyline. He'll lose the last thing he's clinging to, the lie that he was ever in charge. I remembered the nights I stood in this very office, mop in hand, headset on, watching stock tickers while the vacuum hummed. You know what the best part is, Mom? I said softly. She tilted her head. He spent 10 years looking straight through me, never realizing the woman he ignored was becoming everything. Sometimes revenge isn't a courtroom drama or a screaming match. Sometimes, it's patience, precision, grace. Sometimes, it's watching your enemies crumble under the weight of your success. The girl they dismissed? She was the one they should have feared. Because the best revenge isn't shouting. It's owning the building they're shouting in. I raised my glass to the skyline. To 10 years of silence. To taking it all back. She clinked her glass gently against mine. To cleaning up the family business, she said, permanently.